welcome back to Yubi Studio. I am Yubi. I'm an artist, photographer, and stylist, currently based in Atlanta. And I have brought another work explanation vlog for my new series called Wintering. And I have 3 pieces in total, and I named it a Wintering collection because I took the vocabulary wintering from a literature book from Catherine May, and wintering means, of course, like animals sleeping in the winter or going through the winter or preparing spring. It could literally mean going through winter, but metaphorically it also means to really be enduring and to be patient during that winter time. And winter time meaning actually being outside from the world, or not being part of the center of the world, but actually going through and enduring that time of being solitary and being alone. And that really represented my time right after school during my break, where I was just in my studio without contact with any world, but in the creation. And even though there were times that I felt that being apart from the world might bring some kind of instability and very doubt of myself, am I okay just being creating and really being focused in my own creative world? But very enduring through that time, created these 3 pieces. And I really hoped to see what's in me the most, not what's out the world, or not what the world says about my work or about myself, but really going in deep into the roots of that wide, snowed, wintered field of my life, or my time period right after break during winter. So this is my first work, and it is a largest work. It is on a thin wooden panel that my dad kind of threw away to me. 30 to 50 inch, possibly, about medium size. And this biggest work, I wanted to be a portrait, and I intentionally brought out my portrait photography from my albums. And this is actually the sketch. This is the double layout photograph that I had originally. And if you see it, I kind of follow the sketch a lot. I have the frame going on. I kept the frame part of the photograph. I kept the circular part that is behind the portrait, and I also followed the purples that's already in the photograph, and I put a lot of texture through paint to express that leafed garden part behind her, especially that green texture here. I really try to draw that and paint that. And also I kept that large leaves kind of sticking out from her bottom, representing her growth in winter. And I really tried to keep the frame because I just thought the frame kind of creates another frame in the frame, and wanted to create depth. And I put a lot of layers on the bottom side here to really create that gradient of darkness coming bright from the top and going a little darker on the bottom, so it could really enhance her dress and the division between the figure and the background. And it just kind of looks like a snow globe, like it's snowing on top of her, and the shadow kind of creates under her, and that's where kind of she grows out into the snow, into the unknown. Yes, as we're closer, there is a lot of texture in this piece and I love it. It's almost like cracking and like destroyed surface, but out of that surface, like a hidden soul or like a hidden corpse or a hidden like legend is kind of emerging, and it's kind of emerging from the unknown or like the foggy environment, and that kind of represents my inner world, my creative world that's untouched by the world and that has a lot of possibilities, that's beautiful, and that's kind of shining. And especially if you see on the green, the grass part, I did draw a lot of leaves with paint underlayer. I just created leaves. I didn't go exactly by the photo because in the photo it was just full of leaves. But after I would go through that, I went in some like dark points here, dark points a little here, and then I went with different colors to create leaves a lot, like a patterned leaves. But after that, as you see, the reason why it's so foggy, I went over with a very, very light beige or white paint lucidly over the whole surface to create that there's like a little, like a cover or like a lace that kind of creates a screen in front of us to see that garden. And as I planned, I used a lot of dried roses on here, and I wanted the dried roses to be on the garment because I wanted the garment to have the most texture and to be the central focus. And all I did was these were very light purple roses from Trader Joe's and I dried them, and after I dried them I kind of put it in my jars like this. This is one of the jar that's left over from the shoot, and I just cut the heads out and they kind of fall apart anyways, and I preserved it in a jar. And after I preserved it in a jar, I cut them like really thin as much as possible, and I used Mod Podge glue, but I probably shouldn't have done that because Mod Podge glue turns yellow, but I just thought even turning yellow kind of represents how things change during time, and I thought might as well. But next time I'm probably going to use medium, not medium because not medium doesn't turn yellow, or maybe just hot glue, but hot glue probably is going to take really long. And I did focus on the edges of the garment because I wanted that kind of sleeve and the dress and the figure, because I kind of altered the dress. She had a really thin dress like the down here, but I wanted her dress to actually go really wide and just endless fabric. And this is actually a dried flower that was already in the previous piece. Now on a previous piece, there was a head right here. And it was a head with a crown of dried flowers, but I got rid of the face, but I really wanted to keep the dried flower. And if you just lightly paint, like really with dried brush with slightly small amount of paint on the end of the brush, it creates that snowy effect and just creates the texture kind of come out more. And I just love how it's already it's on the center of the piece, and it creates like a crown that's kind of floating on top of her, and I thought that was beautiful. And all this was just from, I just saw the sketch from my iPad. I kind of mimicked, just saw the creative textures created by the flowers that I took a photo, and I kind of just went through that. And I wanted the top part to be the lightest, which is over here, and it kind of, the lightest part kind of flows into the circle of the halo that she has, and I wanted that light to kind of, you know, emerge into the halo to represent like light and life coming into the wintering land. And this is how it looks very close up. All the collage and the gold leaf kind of emerges together, and it kind of also creates like a crack that lets the color or lets the dried flowers kind of grow out. And I think that's just beautiful. And that's her face. Yeah, her face had a lot of collage on top of her, so it was kind of hard to draw above it, but I really wanted to keep that texture along her face so it actually creates a dimension. And after I painted a lot of her face, I also went over her face with very lucid white paint to let her face kind of be blended into this halo. So this is my square piece, and the square piece was the most unexpected outcome. First, because I don't work with anything else but a central focus. So in this case, the figure, which the main subject matter was on kind of a right side, which when I sketched first, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm really gonna like this composition. But I just went with it because I wanted the garden that's surrounding her to be, you know, like an abstract garden or abstract flower field. So might as well having her on the right would be actually a good idea. But as I sketched over and painted layers and layers and layers of paint to create that imagery of blended florals, it created a very beautiful landscape, and the emerging of the figure looks like it's part of a garden. My original photograph right here, it's actually a photograph that is vertical, so I had to cut it when I sketched it through projector. I cut it on the top right there, and I decided to, you know, make a square like this. And as you see, with the real part, I try to keep this frame that I already created with my double layouts, and I really wanted to keep that pink light that was created by Prism on my photograph, and wanted to have that white spots, especially the highlights, as much as possible. Also the darkest points right here. I wanted to really enhance the darkest points, contrast the light, so the figure could really enhance and be shown. So this was the most unplanned and unsketched work out of all the three, because I just wasn't sure if I want to sketch all that out, especially in the flower area. But I kind of was doubting myself painting the garden area without any sketches under, but I just went along with it, and how it just created like layers of paint together to create a new whimsical world. I thought it was just amazing, and it was a really great experience to just go with your guts and really trust my aesthetics and my technical skills. And because of that sky blue, I think it also created like a blended landscape between land and sky together, or maybe ocean. So instead of just having garden, I love how the color palette that was in the sketch, it had sky blue or very, very light blue, and I very enjoy how that blended and created a new wintered landscape that I didn't expect. And the face is actually, if you see it close up right here, it actually has kind of a blue texture, and that's actually because her face was collaged under with a blue floral mulberry paper, and I wanted to keep that texture as much as possible because it was such a beautiful texture. And rather than just having, you know, white paper as a face, I wanted something else with a lot of texture or pattern on it. And I just thought how her face blended into that mulberry paper was beautiful. I think the mulberry paper, like, it wasn't like I didn't plan the paper to be actually here, but I just stuck everything that I had, and her face was sketched there constantly, and I just love that happy accident that it creates. And But I think the gold paint I did intentionally kind of put it around her face because I wanted her face to be the most focused point. And the gold foil is actually has a bigger surface than what you see. Like this gold probably extend until here, but I kept painting and painting. And I intentionally did see like how much gold I wanted to leave and paint it around. And eventually some of them, left like a flower. It kind of left like a hair. It left a portion like a flower next to her. And I just thought that was a beautiful remainage. And there's some bits of collage sticking out over there. I think that brown pen is actually the sketch pen. And over here, there's a scrapbook paper that's sticking out, or kind of I left it as I didn't paint it all. And I love how it's kind of blending into this green area beautifully. So this is my smallest piece. It's about 18 by 24. And I just adore how this piece came out because I really wasn't sure how the technique that I planned on my sketchbook or my planned piece that you saw in the beginning, I wasn't sure how those layers of materials that are planned on my portraits will turn out onto a still life. And I was confident because I was dealing with flowers, and flowers are actually not that difficult for me to work on compared to portraits. But I think I had least trouble actually diving into this work. Maybe because it was smaller, but also because I really loved the sketch photograph or the base photograph that I used. So this is the base photograph that I used. And so basically there were about 2 or 3 photos that's blended into this photograph. So the black and white flower photo is the top, and there is an under layer photo that's like a rose photo that I took at Roswell, Georgia. And I think this pink part was blended into the previous 2 photographs to create another layer. And this was one of my favorite still life photos from this photo shoot, and I decided to really incorporate that into the wooden panel. And I really tried to keep this floral part as much as possible, and especially this huge pink, two pink floral elements that's actually dominating the most of the front layer of the view. And I also wanted to really enhance that prism light, that pink light that is emerging from the top. And maybe because I really loved this sketch or this photograph so much, even though I had a hard time to really sketch it out through a projector because of the light, I enjoyed how the final piece came out according to the photograph, and I really saw the possibility of using my photographs more to create my mixed media artworks. I also really wanted to keep the frame part that you see, like this collage is already creating a frame, and that was already existing on the previous work, and I really wanted to keep that also. And because that frame creates like a focus into the center point, I love having everything in the center kind of grow out according to that. And I did add a lot of dried flowers, but I didn't want to create the dried flowers into a complete form of flower, but kind of a scattered and winter drying flower format. And I think it was successful because the flower was already dried, and the purple was so matching the purple that I already had on the paint. And that purple created such elegance, but also like energy and femininity as well. And I love this part. This is the right corner on the top where the pink light's supposed to be. And I just love how the explosion of paint is kind of immersed here together, and there's such energy, and how that really light teal and the green and the white is, I don't know, just how it merges together. I just think it's spectacular and beautiful. And I think this piece has the least gold emerging into it, but I like that because it kind of peaks from the flowers randomly, but because it's so subtle, I think it's worth to notice. And it's almost like green or gold speckles or gold light that's peeking behind the flowers. And you can kind of see like, oh, is this paint or is this actual flower? And you could kind of see the difference if you zoom it in. And if you see in the middle, the central petals are actually modeling paste, because I wanted to create the final crisp texture onto that final, or the inner petal. So I went with my modeling paste at the last stage. I just love the color palette here. It's just beautiful. Look at that teal and the turquoise, the light scarlet, the purple, and how this collaged piece kind of becomes like the flower itself. Like the edge of here kind of becomes the flower blooming to the right. Thank you so much for tuning in to my works explanation of my recent winter series called Wintering, and I hope you're inspired to not be afraid to really go deep into your old creative world, sometimes just detaching from the world. And you will see how beautiful, how powerful, and how blooming your world could be. And I hope my world will inspire you to create your own world and to express that, to show to the world. And I always thank you guys for supporting my studio, and I hope you have a beautiful winter that you can grow into yourself and to realize what you have inside that is big and enormous.